Welcome to the hardest working committee in the Nevada State Legislature, the Assembly Committee on Government Affairs. Will the Secretary please call the roll?
Assemblyman Carter.
Present.
Assemblyman DeLong.
Present.
Assemblyman De Silva.
Here.
Assemblywoman Duran. Assemblywoman Gonzalez. Assemblyman Gurr. Assemblyman Hibbets. Assemblyman Koenig. Assemblyman MacArthur.
Here.
Assemblyman Wynn.
Here.
Assemblywoman Taylor.
Present.
Assemblywoman Thomas. Chair Torres.
And please mark Assemblyman Koenig present when he arrives. I know we have a couple committee members that may be in or out for presentations in the other house or in other committees today. Welcome to the audience here in Carson City, those joining us here, those joining us in Las Vegas in what seems to be a very packed room, as well as those listening over the internet. Couple housekeeping items. Please remember to silence all electronic devices. If you wish to testify, please sign in at the table by the door and provide a business card to the committee secretary. For those joining online, please be sure to mute your microphone when you're not speaking to minimize background noise. When testifying, please turn on the microphone and clearly state your name, spell your name, and state your affiliation, if any, for the record. Then turn the microphone off each time you are done speaking. Handout should have already been provided to the committee staff, and thank you to Clark County for making sure that that was done ahead of time. We expect courtesy and respect in our interactions during the meeting, even if we do not agree with another person's position. Committee members will be using their laptops to view handouts and other documents. Please do not view this as a sign of disrespect or inattention. A lot of the documents that we use to access legislation is going to be virtual or completely digital, and I know that's the preferred method for many of our members, including Assemblyman MacArthur. Public comment will be taken at the end of the meeting. Each person will be limited to 2 minutes. In addition, the public may submit written testimony to the committee up to 24 hours after the hearing. Just to be clear with members of the public, we do have a work session today. Likely that work session will be taking place at the end of the hearing. I'm waiting till all committee members are present. So we will go ahead and we will be going in order today. So we will be going in order with our bills today. So our first bill will be SB 19, then we'll be followed by SB 299, and I know I have quite the crowd for SB 391 today, and that'll be the last bill that we take a look at this morning, just so the members of the audience and the public know. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and begin.
Good morning, Madam Chair.
One moment.
Okay.
Let me go ahead and open up the hearing on SB 19, which revises provisions related to local government. And then when you're ready, and it looks like Clark County is super ready, you may begin.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Vice Chair Duran, members of the Government Affairs Committee. I am super ready this morning to present Senate Bill 19. This is the final bill that Clark County will be presenting in the Assembly Government Affairs. So I'm very happy to be here with you this morning. In Las Vegas, together with me today, you'll see on the screen our Director of the Department of Aviation, Rosemary Vasiliadis, and James or Jim Chrisley, our Senior Director of the Department of Aviation. They are going to help me present this. Mr. Chrisley is acting as the lead project manager for Clark County's supplemental Southern Nevada Airport, which is the premise for this bill. We are bringing this bill, and the supplemental Southern Nevada Airport, previously known maybe to some of the members of the committee as the Ivanpah Airport, is really the basis for this bill. As you are aware, or might not be aware, Harry Reid International Department of Aviation is a Clark County department. So this is a Clark County bill on behalf of our airport. The Department of Aviation, over which Ms. Vasiliadis is the director, they own and operate various airport facilities in Clark County. The airport has experienced robust growth, you may have seen in the news, and we've become a major leisure destination market and conference venue. The forecasted growth cannot be all accommodated at our existing Harry Reid International Airport. Thus, we have begun to plan the construction and operation of the Southern Nevada Supplemental Airport. This airport is intended to provide long-term aviation capacity for our community, and primarily serving operations such as charter, long-haul, domestic, and international flights. So I put together, I promise you, a very short presentation, very short, Madam Chair, because there's a lot of questions about this project. Mr. Chrisley will go through the slides. I'll be driving from up here, but hopefully this will help you understand the context and why we're bringing this bill. So I will hand it over to Director Vasiliadis and Mr. Chrisley at Grant Sawyer, and we can get started on the presentation. So, Mr. Chrisley.
Thank you, Joanna. James Chrisley, for the record, Chrisley, Senior Director of Aviation for Clark County. But good morning, Madam Chair and members of the committee. We truly do appreciate the opportunity to provide a brief, very brief project update on the proposed Southern Nevada Supplemental Airport. As some of you know, the planning for SNSA actually began more than 20 years ago and moving forward until the Great Recessions of the 2000s. At that time, the planning was merely paused, knowing we'd be back, but due to the economic conditions, we were required to pause the planning at that time. As always, the economy recovered as more and more visitors returned to Las Vegas and the entire Southern Nevada region. It was apparent that Harry Reid International Airport would once again begin to approach capacity, and a second commercial service airport would be needed. In 2018, Director Vasiliadis went back to the Board of County Commissioners and received approval to resume the planning for SNSA. Today, I'd like to provide you that brief synopsis of the prior historical planning efforts, as well as an update on the current efforts underway since the planning was resumed in 2018. From the first round, and as you see in front of you, from the first round of planning, there was actually 3 congressional acts that support and define the Southern Nevada Supplemental Airport. The first act, as described on the slide in front of you, was in 2000, and that included conveying 6,000 acres. That 6,000 acres is shown in the orange rectangle on the map to the right of the slide. And also identified joint lead federal agencies for the environmental impact statement process, which included both the FAA and the BLM. So we get the pleasure of dealing with 2 federal entities as we plan this project. As a result of this act, the Clark County Department of Aviation purchased those 6,000 acres, and we own those today. Next slide, please. The second act included designating 17,000 acres. That's defined by the dashed line that surrounds the orange rectangle. So it's mostly on the east side of I-15, and it's identified that's 17,000 acres. And that was designated in this congressional act for airport compatibility. And the condition of this 17,000 acres is we have to get a favorable record of decision through the BLM and FAA environmental impact statement process. Once we receive that favorable record of decision, the 17,000 acres will be conveyed to the Clark County Department of Aviation. Additionally, it established a half-mile wide transportation and utility corridor. That's shown on the map as the gray shaded area that starts at the top of the orange rectangle, the 6,000 acres, and proceeds all the way up to Salone on the east side of 15. And this area is to be used for non-exclusive use, but to be used for any transportation access and utility requirements to come from the valley down to the SNSA site. And then finally, the third act, it identified in 2015 the National Defense Authorization Act. It identified flood control basins. There's one on the west of I-15 labeled Good Springs, and then east of the site is the Lucy Gray, and those 2 areas are required for flood control efforts to ensure the site does not flood during massive rain events. So next slide, please. So why was the Ivanpah Valley selected? So I mean, there was a huge study back in the 2000s, but primarily user convenience. There's a direct route from the strip along I-15, ability to offer redundant access to and from the site. We have I-15 as well as that transportation utility corridor with the plans to include some ground transportation access in that. The potential for transit connection also in that transportation utility corridor where we would have mass transit capability. And it's located a greater distance away from current incompatible land uses. Harry Reid is landlocked and getting more and more surrounded and encroached with other uses. And this site is obviously a greenfield site, which will be able to be controlled with the 17,000 acres to ensure compatible development around it. And it does offer a lower development cost with the greenfield site. In our efforts, we have revalidated the studies that selected the SNSA site due to the facts that LAS is also, as I mentioned, landlocked. The DoD airspace restrictions due to Nellis Air Force Base and the Nellis Training Range to the north, and the mountainous terrain that defines the Las Vegas Valley. SNSA was revalidated as the only viable location for a second commercial service airport. Next slide, please. So this slide is just meant to show you we have forecasted and the aviation demand for Las Vegas Valley is not going anywhere and will continue to grow. And as this shows, for every scenario we look to, between different scenarios of growth potential. We're going to be increasing delays starting this year at Harry Reid as we continue to approach capacity. And Harry Reid does have a finite capacity, and we will be, as we move forward to opening day of the new airport, we will be facing delays for our customers. Next slide, please. And so some of our current planning efforts, we've been working on this, like I said, since 2018. We've verified an airfield layout, validation, adjustments. We've had many opportunities for agency and stakeholder coordination. One of our primary coordination efforts was with Brightline. Their rail was running immediately adjacent to the SNSA site, so we had to work with them closely to ensure the two projects were not in conflict. We've worked very closely with NDOT over the past years to understand access and their plans for the future and how I-15 will be worked and used as access to this site. And we've also worked very hard on identifying utility plans and needs and plans for electric, water, sewer, stormwater, et cetera. We've also gone through an enormous effort to validate a lot of the previous studies from the first planning efforts, including updating base maps, identifying future plans that require updating, and continuing the future or the planning efforts required by both the FAA and the BLM. We've had some public outreach with ground access public meetings and understanding the needs or the asks of the community on how they would like to access this site. Obviously, it has to start with Harry Reid and LAS. We've looked at the demand and capacity analysis of what Harry Reid's ultimate capacity could be, and we're still working on that as we sit here today. And we also have to look at runway lengths, and we're also busy protecting the surrounding area. There are some private parcels within that 17,000 acres, and we continue to work very closely with those developers to ensure what they're proposing will not impact the future or viability of this airport. And then one of our biggest victories this past 6 months, we were able to get the FAA to begin an airspace study, which is a huge accomplishment to get them to admit that or to agree to start that study. Next slide. And here's our current schedule, just to show you. We are currently in year 3 or between year 3, so we're hovering between planning and the environmental. The next step is to get the RFQ process for the environmental impact statement contractor to begin work on that EIS and get a notice of intent from the FAA. But we're currently in year 3. As you can see, after environmental clearance is received, we would begin design and then construction with an overall completion date, hopefully within the 2035 to 2037 range. Next slide, please. And with that, these are our next steps, our immediate next steps over the next 6 to 12 months. We're going to finalize all the aviation activity forecasts, which are all very strong and showing continuous growth. We're going to continue to explore and define the on and off airport utilities. Financial analysis, that's another very key component of this project, is the way we're going to both fund the construction as well as operate the airport from financial perspective. We do have a financial analyst on board. Further develop the ground access plan, define those, and make final decisions. There's a lot of wildlife hazard assessment work that has to be done, which we've just received a draft report, so that's moving forward. We do have to complete the full airfield layout plan update required by FAA, which will define the ultimate build out of the airport site. And then as well as what will this airport look like on opening day in 2035 or between 2035 and 2037. We need to determine what the actual facilities that will be available on that first day. With that, that concludes my presentation, and I'd like to pass it back over to Joanna.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We've been doing that presentation to just explain the timeline and our current efforts, and to really underscore the fact that we are.
I apologize. If in Las Vegas, if you could mute your microphone because we get the feedback. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Going back to what I was saying is really to underscore the fact that we have a lot of balls in the air, and we are bringing this bill right now as a Clark County bill to avoid further delay on this very tight timeline that we are on. I can briefly walk through this bill for you, Madam Chair, and I'm going to start with on page 10, section 13 of the bill. I will not go through every single section because I note that this bill has been drafted under LCP's guidance as a statewide bill. So though it is intended to cover the site that was depicted in the map that was on the slide, you have a hard copy. I've blew up the map for you because there's a lot of questions about where this airport is. So everybody has a copy of that map. As I walk through section 13, you'll understand why we drafted the bill this way. This bill is intended to authorize the county to to create a new unincorporated town within the county to cover this airport area that is depicted on the map. We must seek legislative authority to create this unincorporated town, because the ways that you create a town in Nevada is usually by petition of residents. This area is largely uninhabited. But this is really intended for us to get this area defined so that we can continue the work on the environmental review and planning, design, and construction. So Section 13 on page 10 authorizes our Board of County Commissioners to create and form an unincorporated town by ordinance, and that it is for the purpose in Section 1, sub A, 1, 2, and 3. So you'll see we have said this would be a town that is transferred to the county under a federal law enacted after January 1st, 2000. That was intended to cover the congressional acts in the presentation, conveyed to the county of at least 5,000 acres for the purpose of developing an airport. That is intended to capture the 6,000 acres that we already own, and also to address noise compatibility issues related to the airport. That is on your map, the black dotted line that Mr. Chrisley defined and came to us, or will come to us as we complete the environmental review under the 2002 Act. And then you'll see, or in subsection 1B, is located not more than 1 mile from any territory from that. I'm calling that the 1 mile buffer zone. That's depicted on the map as a green solid line around this site. That would be really the boundary of the new town that we are going to create. The process for doing the town is basically we have to pass an ordinance at a public meeting, and this will be a very public process. And we really must notify, you'll see in section 13 further down, that we have provided that before we adopt the ordinance, that we will hold a public hearing and that we will notice any property owners in the site. That is actually consistent with really the formation of the towns. I guess now I would like to go, the other major premise of this bill, and then if we could go to section 2 of the bill. This is starting on page 3. We have, in creating this town, you'll see section 2 is drafted to prohibit a city from annexing territory in this area. And this is really intended to say this will be a site that we are going to do compatible zoning consistent with an airport. So you'll see that we have provided for the prohibition on the annexation. You'll see that it's in the area defined in section 13, but in subsection 2, we have also provided for the way that you can annex territory under law today. You'll see we've incorporated the current criteria as an exemption. So no annexation except for the criteria that we have in subsection 2, where we say if it's approved by a resolution by the board, if it was territory that was annexed prior to the effective date of the federal acts or before the effective date of this bill. You'll also note that we have said, or if it's pursuant to an interlocal agreement, that is actually intended on your map. You see an orange diagonal area at the upper part of the map. That area that is shaded in orange diagonal is an interlocal agreement. It's an area covered by an interlocal agreement we have with the city of Henderson. We had entered into that agreement with the city when we were starting our federal lands bill, and have provided for the joint planning. It's a joint planning and study area that is a collaborative project with the county and with the city of Henderson. So any annexation in that area, you'll see that it overlaps the green line, I guess, at the top of your map. We have been in discussion with the city of Henderson, and it's going to go under the terms of that agreement. So this was drafted very purposefully to accommodate the agreement that we have with the city of Henderson. You'll see in the later sections of the bill, Madam Chair, section 4, section 5, this is really because the point of the bill is to prevent the annexation in section 2, we've incorporated section 2 into all of the other sections on how we annex territory in Nevada. So section 4 is the process for annexation by a city. Section 5 really, under existing laws, a section on definition of terms, so we've incorporated section 13 in there. Section 6 sets the criteria. for annexation, so we've incorporated our section, et cetera. So this is really the point of the bill. Sections 3 and 8 to 12, it's not clear from the premise of the bill, but those sections were incorporated by LCB because they apply to counties under 700,000. So that would be any other county in the state apart from Clark County. I will tell you that before we started the legislative session, we did significant outreach to NACO and to our fellow counties, to the Reno Tahoe Airport, to see if they needed alternative criteria so that this would not interfere with any of their plans, and nobody felt that the way that we had drafted this bill would interfere with those plans, so everybody is neutral. I think just really, as the final sections 14 and 6 through 16 of the bill, usually when a town is created, you provide for the election or appointment of a town board in the ordinance. We are going to defer that until we really get going, I guess, with this airport and when the infrastructure starts. So that will be deferred to a future timeline where we will provide for the election or appointment of the town board in a second ordinance, and that is the intent. So really, with that, Madam Chair, I hope that that's a quick overview of the bill. I know that there may be questions, so I do have our experts down south who can help us answer questions, and I will close there and see what questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. You definitely flew through this presentation. And I know that you made sure that this presentation really had a steady landing. So let's go ahead and go into questions. I'm going to go ahead and cross-check the committee and see who has questions. I see Assemblywoman Gonzalez. We'll go ahead and begin with Assemblywoman Gonzalez.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much for the presentation. I was curious how this would work with the newly designated federal monument.
Joanna Jacob, for the record, for Clark County. I can speak to this. We actually worked with our congressional delegation as that monument designation was planned and finalized. And so the airport, as Mr. Chrisley had noted, it has been been planned for a very long time. So how that will work is that as the monument is finalized, there are specific rules in the federal level about governing the airspace over a federal monument. And so we have made sure that the monument and the airport can coexist, I guess, at that point, that we will comply. It depends on how it is designated, but we are working with our congressional delegation on that and with our federal team that Clark County has. And I don't know, Mr. Chrisley, is there anything else you would like to add to that? But that's a quick answer to the question. You don't have to unless I answered it, but I guess if there's anything to add, thank you.
James Chrisley for the record. I'm sorry, can you hear me? Yeah. James Chrisley for the record, but yeah, I'd just like to add that there's a committee that was identified in the proclamation for the monument that will establish the rules and regulations on how the monument will be managed, and our goal is to be a part of that planning committee so we can ensure the airspace for this airport as well as our current airports are protected and not impacted by the declaration of the monument. Thank you.
Thank you. Assemblyman Nguyen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, everyone, for being here. It's great to see the director and the senior director. It's been a while since I've been up here, so I don't get to see the Clark folks anymore. However, my really line of question is going to be somewhat familiar to Ms. Jacobs and some of the folks here in Assembly and Government Affairs, that on Section 13, when we're looking at the notification of the ordinances that the county commission may adopt, I think my question is, as we look into notify everyone as much as possible, right? I think 15 days notice sometime might be limiting, but at the same time, I'm encouraging perhaps the county to look at ways to incorporate other languages into the notification, as we are moving in a direction that the county has a lot of diversity in residents, and we're one of we're the third largest growing diverse population state in the country, right? So we want to make sure that we, for a project like this, has such a large impact that we would consider looking at putting that notice in multiple languages, as well as looking to ways to modernize that outside of mail. And you've heard this before through other bills, is using electronic mail notification, because, sometimes people are, all of us have at least one device or more, and having notification electronically as well would be helpful. So those are a couple things that I want to see if you can address.
Joanna Jacob on behalf of Clark County, and through you, Chair Torres, to Assemblyman Nguyen.
Please feel free to fly directly to the member.
This is not a new question. Yes, I am not surprised by this question. I know the issue of language access and really updating technology has been very much discussed before this committee. We are working with the chairwoman on her bill about language access, and that was earlier presented by this. And I think there is a robust, really outline. The slide is still up there, that we have a website on this project. So we are moving towards electronic means of providing information about this site. I have made the note about multiple language access, and as we move forward, Clark County is working on this. I will tell you, the reason why we worked with the chairwoman on her bill is we have a new Spanish language PIO. We are trying to put all of our, regardless if you pass legislation or not, we are putting all of our ordinances and really the topics of really very much public interest. This is probably one of them, into Spanish, and then we'll work on additional languages. I'll ask Mr. Crisley or Director Vasiliadis I know that there's a public outreach and communications plan probably that they are working on as we move forward on this project, and see if they have anything else to add.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Rosemary Vasiliadis, Clark County Department of Aviation. It is our industry to talk to the whole world, since the whole world comes through the airport. And although we have adopted international symbols for directional purposes, you will see in our messaging that we have already incorporated multi-languages. You will certainly see that in one of our prime programs, which is human trafficking. The stickers that we put in every single bathroom stall is in multiple languages. So it is truly our industry, it's our world, and we will certainly adopt to that in everything going forward, including this type of public notice. Thank you.
Thank you, Director, for that answer, and thank you, Ms. Jacobs. I'm very glad that we put this on public record, that Clark is definitely leading the pack for the state in terms of ensuring that languages access is critical, and I applaud your effort working with our Madam Chair on language access, ensuring that we not put this as an afterthought, but as we're going forward with everything that we do. So thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, and I think with Director Vasiliadis and her team in the pilot seat, that we have no doubt that they'll continue this work. Next, Assemblyman Carter.
Good morning. The airport authorities had a long-term relationship with the representatives of labor in Clark County. Highly successful agreement that has ensured that those good-paying jobs go to citizens of Clark County. And can we expect that project labor agreement to be extended out to this project, or a similar agreement to be put in place for a project like this, to where we can make sure that out-of-state contractors don't come in, take our money, and export it out of state?
Joanna Jacob, Clark County, for the record. Assemblyman Carter, thank you for acknowledging the work that we've done with labor on our project labor agreement. I'm going to ask Director Vasiliadis or Deputy Director Crisley to address that question, because they're working on the design and construction. Thank you.
Thank you. Rosemary Vasiliadis, Clark County Department of Aviation. We have had a very long-standing and successful project labor agreement at PLA. We have continued using that, and I can't speak for something 10 years from now, but I can't imagine with the length that we have been utilizing and had success with this type of agreement, not to continue to do so. Thank you.
Thank you. Assemblyman DeLong.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you for the presentation. I understand the desire to not have annexation within the green line. I get that. I'm just wondering, why create a town? Why not just use zoning and land use planning?
Joanna Jacob for the record. Thank you for that question. The reason why we elected to create a town right now is there's numerous reasons why we want to do so. Towns eventually down the line, when we create an unincorporated town, anything that is built within that town and revenues within that town will support the services for that site. So that's one reason. The second reason really at this time why we're trying to do this is really to get, as we're entering into the into working with the federal agencies, it is important for us to define this area and know that the county is the one with whom they are going to be negotiating, I think, so that it really helps us to designate the area and define it and eventually move it towards supporting the site with infrastructure and planning, and so that we can really start working on those multiple calendars. I don't know if if anybody down south has any other thoughts to add in response to that question, but that's our current intent.
Doesn't appear there's additional remarks. Okay, I think that answers the Assemblyman's question. Assemblyman Thomas.
Good morning, Madam Chair, and thank you, Ms. Jacobs, for this presentation. I'm like a kid in a candy store right now. I am so excited about being a part of history. This is history for Nevada, and I think that, you know, thinking outside of the box right now to have a vision, you know, my concern, though, I don't know if it's a concern, but you know, I'll go into history. You know, when Nevada was, Las Vegas was created, there was, you know, well, I won't. Well, I'll make it like it's history. Okay, we had a gangster that basically created Las Vegas. He had vision. And to see that vision is coming, you know, to the south of the Strip is something that I think that is something that we can, you know, as a state, be proud of. Because right now we're very proud of Las Vegas because Las Vegas generates a lot of revenue for the entire state of Nevada. So my question actually has to do with a couple of things. When I see the Bright Line rail, will this be something that will go all the way into the city of Las Vegas? Because we don't want people to fly into this airport and then, you know, have little or no, you know, transportation. And this would be something that I think that even the citizens could rely on transportation. So that's one of my questions. The other one is, will the county, excuse me, will the county commissioner's seat be expanded?
Joanna Jacob for the record. Assemblywoman Thomas, you ask the most interesting questions, I will say, in my experience before this committee. So I'll take a stab at the first one. And I think Director Deputy Director Chrisley had the Bright Line project in the slides, and they are working on that right now. So I'll let him elaborate on that. With respect to question 2, and with respect to your question, I cannot bind future boards. This is in the county today. So this is covered under our existing Board of County Commissioners and in the current seat. So that is my response. And I'll ask Director Chrisley to talk about what we're doing with Brightline right now.
James Chrisley for the record, but yes, Brightline currently, it passes by the Southern Nevada Supplemental Airport, and the terminus station is actually up at the South Strip at approximately, or currently planned to be approximately Warm Springs and Las Vegas Boulevard. So there's currently no plan for a stop at the airport, but we certainly are discussing with them, and our discussions have mostly been about deconflicting what they're doing with what our airport plans are to the state. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go ahead and continue taking off into our questions. Next, I have Assemblyman De Silva.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you again, Ms. Jacobs, for your great presentation and our co-presenters in Las Vegas. Assemblywoman Thomas did, take half my question. I wanted to see if there's any more details about the Brightline project and some of the potential relationship there with this airport project. But my question is this. I know there's been some planners talking about creating some sort of an inland port, in regards to this airport to help us alleviate some of our supply chain issues. I was just wondering, is that something that the county is working on, or is this some conversation I'm hearing from private entities, so to speak?
Joanna Jacob, for the record, on behalf of Clark County. I do not know the answer to that question. So I'm going to ask if Director Vasiliadis if that's been in discussion. I believe we may have our planning director, yes, also there. So if there's somebody in Las Vegas who could address that question.
Thank you, Rosemary Vasiliadis, Clark County Department of Aviation. That is a great question. It is an idea that comes up very often. There are not any current plans to go forward with a complete inland port operation. However, I must say that this airport would be a perfect piece for such an operation. Thank you.
Thank you, Assemblyman Taylor.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Ms. Jacobs, for the presentation and for your co-presenters. I wanna land in another place right here, okay? You talked a little bit about that there aren't very many residents that live. How many residents would be impacted? Do you have any idea? Would they have to relocate, or what's kind of the planning around that?
Joanna Jacob, for the record, so I'll take an initial stab and then ask Deputy Director Chrisley to talk about this. The area that we are forming in the town, there are existing uses in there, and this is going to be part of the environmental review. They'll get notified and be able to comment on the notice of environmental impact. So, and I've heard them, we've been discussing that maybe those uses would be grandfathered or incorporated in there, and I'll ask Deputy Director Chrisley to talk a little bit more about how many are there today. I do not believe there are many, because this is largely uninhabited land in the south of Clark County. Jim?
Rosemary Vasiliadis, Director of Aviation. I'm conferring at the moment, so please forgive me, with Director Amundsen of Comprehensive Planning, and it's rounds to zero. Right now, we're showing no residents, but we will have to verify that if that's proper and get back with you.
Joanna Jacob, for the record. So just to follow up, this is largely empty land. So we will follow up with Assemblywoman Taylor and get you those things. And I'm glad that she was off the screen. I know our Director of Comprehensive Planning has been, this is one in which planning and aviation are working together very closely on this project. So I'll work with them and we can get you the information after the hearing.
Thank you very much. A quick follow-up, Chair?
Yes, go ahead.
Will this town, will it have a name?
Joanna Jacob, for the record, I would imagine so. I would imagine so, though I don't have a proposed name at this time. That is the point of the public hearing, though, I think, is that it will be noticed, and so I don't know what the board or eventual board, because we don't know, like I said.
Don't have a board yet.
Well, our Board of County Commissioners, it may be the current board, it may be a future board, will actually do this, and so I think that would be, that would be part of our ordinance process.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Assemblywoman Thomas.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a quick question. There's a prison there, no?
Joanna Jacob, for the record, there's an abandoned state-owned building there, the Jean Prison, yes.
Thank you.
It's
And
on the, I know, sorry, it's Joanna Jacob for the record, sorry.
And I did actually have a question too. So I thank you for taking the opportunity to meet with me yesterday and to kind of walk me through this, and for me to have the opportunity to look at the map and kind of conceptualize what we were looking at, especially sometimes getting the picture of the bill that we are hearing today. And so I guess my question is, so is the vision then that in the area that is surrounding the airport, there will eventually be like businesses and perhaps residences? Is that kind of in the plan, or would that be prevented? Thank you.
Joanna Jacob, for the record, to address your question, and I may ask our Director of Comprehensive Planning to correct me if I misspeak, but I think this is the point of our bill right now, is that we really wanted to provide for compatible, when we talk about compatible use with an airport, that is going to be why we are doing this, so that we can do compatible zoning. I don't believe that decision has been made yet, Madam Chair, but this is part of the planning process that we are doing, and that's why our comprehensive planning department is part of this team. So it'll be very much dictated by, I think, our federal permit and the environmental impacts that we must mitigate. Then the planning will kind of be guided by that document. And I don't know if there's anything else to add from Southern Nevada. I see our director will step up to the table. This is Nancy Amundsen, our Director of Comprehensive Planning.
She's joining the cabin.
Yeah. I know.
Nancy Amundsen, down here in Clark County. There's two different components of this. You have a hatched area on your map that is a joint land use study area. We had designated this area was in the lands bill for expansion of the disposal boundary. However, whether that occurs or not, we want to work with the city of Henderson to make sure that whatever land uses that are proposed in that area would be compatible with the airport, and they've agreed. In that area, we are looking for some workforce housing, that sort of thing. We generally don't encourage, or we don't look for anything but non-residential around an airport, because there are some great impacts, and so we look for that to be more non-residential. So that's the reason for our land use study. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And, I could definitely see, as the city of Las Vegas continues to expand, city of Henderson is right there as well. Like, I could definitely see the need for us to have more than one airport. So thank you for your presentation. I think that the plane has arrived. And I don't believe there are any additional questions from my committee members. So at this time, I will go ahead and move into support and invite anyone wishing to testify in support of SB 19. Thank you.
Morning, Madam Chair. For the record, Danny Thompson, representing the Southern Nevada Building Trades, IBW 396, Operating Engineers, Local 12. We're in support of this project. Ivanpah is nothing new. This has been worked on for years. Ivanpah it's named Ivanpah because it's in the Ivanpah Valley, adjacent to the Ivanpah Mountains, between the Ivanpah Mountains and the New York Mountains in Southern Nevada, right on the border with California. This project is historic, Assemblywoman Thomas, in that, the forward thinking of Clark County in ensuring that Las Vegas is going to be a worldwide destination is critical, and this airport is critical to that. And, the forward thinking of the Department of Aviation, led by Director Vasiliadis, is really incredible and needed, and this airport is critical to, if we're going to maintain, and that all the growth we're having with stadiums and all the things that you all are doing to ensure that, 46% of our budget comes from that 7 miles of Las Vegas Strip is important, and so we wholeheartedly support this bill. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, members of the committee. For the record, Tom Morley, representing Laborers Local 872 and Laborers Local 169, and as well as the Communication Workers of America, and we are strongly in support of this bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Susan Fisher with McDonald Carano speaking today on behalf of Nevada Aviation Association. We are thrilled to have this bill here today to keep moving the ball forward with this airport, and we appreciate Clark County and the Department of Aviation's long-term vision on this airport. If you build a mile of road, you drive a mile. You build a mile of runway, you can fly around the world. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair Torres and members of the hardest working committee. Dylan Keith for the record with the Vegas Chamber. The Vegas Chamber is the broadest and biggest business-based organization in the state of Nevada. It's also the oldest since 1911. I want to highlight that because this airport is truly a testament to our success. We have the Southern Nevada Water Authority making us a leader in water conservation so we can grow sustainably. Our resorts corridor is thriving. Businesses are growing and economic development is coming to Nevada. And with the new growth, we are seeing new residents, we are seeing new businesses, and we are seeing new needs. This bill is a testament to that growth and showing that it is necessary that we have all of the needs so that way our goods, visitors, and locals are free to move about the country. And we support this bill and we ask for your support as well. Thank you.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, Nick Vasiliadis for the record here on behalf of the Carpenters Union to give a kind of ditto Me Too support to everything that you've heard. And then also on a personal note, hi Mom. Assemblywoman Thomas, I'd just like to say, I think and you talked about visionary, I think I've been hearing this at the dinner table for the last 20 years, that the need for expansion in Southern Nevada. And so this is something that's been a long time coming, and the Carpenters Union is proud to support. Thank you, Madam Chair, for your indulgence.
Thank you. And you know, you should, in Latin America, this is actually Mother's Day too, so I think you have to wish her a early happy Mother's Day.
Happy Mother's Day, Mom.
Thank you. Next here in Carson City.
Alex Speak with Current Nevada for the record, here on behalf of Las Vegas Global Economic Alliance, and we are here in support of SB 19. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm going to go quickly to Las Vegas and then I'll come back.
Good morning, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Virginia Valentine. I'm with the Nevada Resort Association, and we're very happy to be here today in support of SB 19. Southern Nevada's economy is continuing to improve. The airport keeps setting new records for as the return of conventions and trade shows. Over the past year, LAS single-month passenger record was broken 3 times, with October being the first month ever to surpass 5 million travelers. Most of all, I want to support this bill and really applaud the efforts of the county in being very proactive in creating a town which will allow them to prevent and plan for this future airport. If you look at McCarran now, and you can see the kind of encroachments that continue to happen, the areas of residential development that the airport had to actually remove at some point to mitigate the impacts of some of the sound and other impacts of the airport. So for them to be out there now this early, creating this planning area so that they can prevent those encroachments from happening, so they don't have to deal with them later, I think is just very, it shows a lot of foresight on their part. I think it's very important to the continued economic health of the area. And with that, I'm just happy to say we're here to support the bill today. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Valentine. We'll come back here to Carson City. If there's anybody else in Las Vegas, please approach the table, but we'll come back to Carson City.
Andy Donahue, Labor Employers Cooperation and Education Trust, in support of this bill.
Thank you. I don't see anybody else here in Carson City or anybody else in Las Vegas. BPS, is there anyone on the line wishing to testify in support of SB 19?
Chair, the line is open and working, but there are no callers choosing to testify at this time.
Thank you. At this time, I'll invite anyone in opposition to SB 19. I don't see any here in Carson City. Is there anyone in Las Vegas? I don't see any in Las Vegas. BPS, is there anyone on the line wishing to oppose SB 19?
Chair, there are no callers choosing to testify in opposition at this time.
Thank you. At this time, I'll invite anyone wishing to testify in neutral. When you're ready, please begin.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Nicole Rourke, representing the city of Henderson. Since we were mentioned during testimony, first we'd like to thank the county for coming to us early on to explain it. We went through the map that you all have in front of you, and we were grateful for walking through the language since it's a very complex bill. Although we wouldn't normally support taking away our powers to annex, this is a unique circumstance, and we are working with the county under an interlocal agreement to plan for the Southern Nevada Supplemental Airport area. The purpose of the interlocal agreement is to jointly fund a study to determine potential future land uses and design standards, and the understanding that some portion of that area may be within the city of Henderson jurisdiction someday. Through that process, the city is confident that there will be areas that the city is able to annex in the future, and we understand the importance of the Southern Nevada Supplemental Airport to our region and our state's economy, and appreciate working closely with the county to plan for future growth. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see anyone else wishing to testify neutral to SB 19 here in Carson City or in Las Vegas. PPS, is there no one on the line wishing to testify neutral to SB 19?
Chair, there are no callers choosing to testify neutral at this time.
All right. At this time, I'll invite the county for any closing remarks.
Madam Chair, just very briefly, I wanted to thank everybody who came out and supported this bill. It is really, truly a community project, and we did a lot of work on this and outreach, and so Assemblyman, we will continue to do that. And I wanted to thank you for your questions today. This is a very exciting bill and very exciting for the future of our valley, so I'm going to ask you for your support and to keep this bill going forward. And I want to thank you for the very thoughtful dialogue, and thank you.
Thank you. I think this bill will continue to stay in flight. At this time, I'll go ahead and I think that the plate is landed, said so has the hearing. So we go ahead and close the hearing on SB 19. And we will go ahead and open the hearing on SB 299, which revises provisions related to monorails. Welcome Senator Flores to the hardest working committee in the Nevada State Legislature. And I know you're going to have your presentation. I don't think it's going to get derailed. So let's go ahead and begin. It's Transportation Day. It's government affairs. There's so many great things yet to be said. In classic Senate fashion, they're just a little slow. When you're ready.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Vice Chair, and esteemed colleagues of the almost as hardworking committee on the Senate side. I am Senator Edgar Flores. For the record, Madam Chair, before I open up my presentation and we formally get into the bill discussion, I wanted to let you know that I did an independent study, and it was just me. And it wasn't verified by anybody, but it was determined that the Senate Government Affairs Committee is in fact the hardest working committee in the building. However, Madam Chair.
There's a little sign there that says you're not allowed to lie on the record.
Mm-hmm. Madam Chair, I asked both fiscal and legal to provide a written opinion. They were busy doing more important things, but when I get that written opinion, I will provide it for all the members.
We'll have our research team look into that.
Madam Chair, again, Senator Edgar Flores for the record. It is an absolute pleasure to be back in the Assembly Government Affairs Committee. I had the pleasure of serving in this committee since 2015, and so I feel I am at home. And you have some phenomenal human beings working this committee, so it is an absolute honor to be here before all of you. Madam Chair, in the interest of time, I am going to I have some written remarks that I would just read through and not go through 14 different hypotheticals at your request. And then I will, at that time, hand it over to Mr. Donahue, who is here to provide more detailed and/or subject matter expertise, should that be necessary. But I do believe that this is a relatively quick read and a bill that is just meant to provide some cleanup of some stuff that we needed to have taken care of long ago. So with that, I'd like to just start off with what the genesis of the bill is, then walk you with what the bill does, and then lastly, I will hand it over to Mr. Donahue. Nevada Revised Statute 338 provides much of the legal framework on the administrative public projects. This includes bidding, equipment, materials, supplies, labor standards, and other topics. Specifically, NRS 338.010 defines a public work as any project for new construction, repair, or reconstruction of a project financed in whole or in part from public money, including projects such as public buildings, public roads, public utilities, and others. Key exemptions from the provisions of the chapter are found in NRS 338.080 and include projects with an estimated cost of less than $100,000. Work for railroad company and work for certain apprentices under NRS 610. Under NRS 705-690, the work of or incident to the installation and operation of a monorail is not a public work within the meaning of NRS 338. This is the genesis of this bill. Senate Bill 229 removes a 26-year exemption that excludes monorail and light rail projects from public work standards. Specifically, this bill removes these exemptions, and as a result, any work, construction, alteration, repair, or other employment performed, undertaken, or carried out for any railroad company or any person operating the same will be subject to the standards of NRS 338. Further, the bill also retains the existing law clarifying that a monorail is not a public utility under NRS 704. Lastly, pursuant to the Railway Labor Act, railroad companies are required to pay their employee the wages determined by their collective bargaining agreements under 45 U.S.C. Section 152. If the railroad is performing that work, it is governed under the Railway Labor Act. It may contract the work out, or an awarding body of another entity may contract out to perform the rail work, which is then taken over the railway later to its specifications that would be subject to NRS 338. That is what we want to make sure this bill hits, and I just want to make it abundantly clear. It is not the intent of this bill to have any impact on privately funded monorail or light rail projects. And Madam Chair, if I may now hand it over to Mr. Andy Donahue.
Thank you, Senator Flores. This legislation marks meaningful progress and market expansion in the area of transportation and transportation accessories. We support this bill and welcome this conversation.
Thank you. At this time, I'll go ahead and open up for questions. Assemblyman Carter.
So would this bill also include projects like we see this proliferation of private underground roadways, i.e. the Boring Company building in Las Vegas?
Andy Donahue for the record. Thank you for the question. I would look to the chapter this exemption addresses, which is public works. So if it's private works, it's not public works. And the standards of public works apply to public works. So no, as the senator mentioned in the conclusion of his remarks.
So we're going to continue to allow the Boring Company to use public property to build their private roadways in the public domain at exploitive wages and conditions?
Thank you for that question, Assemblyman Senator Edgar Flores, for the record. While I think all of us could have a very detailed conversation where how we feel about that, and you've made it abundantly clear that there may be some frustration. Unfortunately, our bill is not trying to expand the scope of a public work and or redefining that. We are simply trying to ensure that we are capturing under the current exemptions that we are putting back in railway. But you and I, off the record, could absolutely have a very lengthy discussion on how frustrating your concerns are, and they're echoed by many of the people in this room, and I'm sure by many of the members of this very body. But unfortunately, we are not expanding that definition.
Thank you.
Thank you. And there might perhaps be another train or another vehicle for us to continue with that conversation. Members, any additional questions? Assemblyman Hibbets.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Senator. Good to see you as always. My question is, why are we doing this? We have, as far as I know, no light rail anywhere in Clark County. I'm not sure about Washoe County. I'm very possible that they have a light rail or a monorail I'm not aware of. I apologize for not spending much time on Washoe. And we have one monorail in Clark County that we shouldn't have. It should be removed and torn down, so, because nobody rides it. Why are we bothering with legislation for something that isn't a problem that we don't have?
And Johnny, for the record, thanks for that question too. In 1997, this variety of project was carved out of Public Works Administration because there weren't enough vendors or contractors equipped or ready to bid these varieties of jobs. That's changed. The industry is more active, and in matter of efficiency for private sector actors trying to participate in public works, there's no reason for this to be any different from other similarly situated projects. So that's a large impetus for what we're talking about here today.
Thank you. So last I checked, it's no longer 1997. We also still don't have any light rail. We have no plans for light rail. It has been discussed, it has been disregarded because it won't work. And again, we have a monorail that we shouldn't have. So why bother with the legislation?
And thank you for that question, Assemblyman. Senator Edgar Flores, for the record. I do agree with you that we may not have anything in the works, but I do think that this exemption should honestly have been corrected years ago, because if we are moving in that direction, and again, I am not suggesting that we are doing this legislation now for a specific project. I do believe that the philosophical question that this body is being asked today through this bill is, if 10 years down the road, we find ourselves with something that is a public work and falls under this classification of railroad, railway, do we believe that we want to continue to have that exemption? And I think that's, quite frankly, this is preemptively us saying, before we have a specific project and we hit that situation and we have legislation in here where we will have individuals saying, well, this project is in the pipeline and now this bill is coming forward. I am just saying, us philosophically, without having any specific project in the pipeline, do we agree that this exemption should have been taken care of? And that's the question. Now, you may disagree, Assemblyman. You may say railroads and railways should be exempted, and there may be a reason for that. We believe that the only reason that they were exempted back in '97 is no longer true, and I think preemptively we should say, well, we're going to correct. It's been now over 23 years, and we have an opportunity for us to correct an exemption that, in my opinion, is no longer sustained by the logic of '97.
Thank you, and thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I'm a little surprised there wasn't a hypothetical there. But Assemblyman De Silva.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Senator Flores and Mr. Donahue here for getting everybody all aboard with this legislation here. So my question is this. Is there a chance that the system could bend?
Hey, Johnny, thank you for the question. Not in your life, my right honorable friend, especially with a strong local workforce.
Thank you.
There were things that were missing from this part. All right.
Madam Chair, Senator Edgar Flores, for the record, and I just wanted to thank Assemblyman MacArthur. He and I yesterday had a very lengthy conversation about trains, and I did not understand. I don't know if the committee knew this, but he used to be a train conductor himself, and so he provided a lot of insight, and I just wanted to appreciate you for your time and your expertise.
I don't know that he was a train. Were you a train conductor? No, he wasn't a train conductor. I think just to clarify, he did not conduct trains. He did fly planes, though. The other bill spoke more to him. Yeah, just switch around. Wrong transportation. And, I did hear that these things are awfully loud. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Indeed. Andy, for the record, it glides as softly as a cloud, especially when proper engineering and zoning standards are followed. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, Are there any additional questions from committee members? Councilwoman MacArthur? No, he's impressed by the legislation at work. Awesome. Thank you so much. It looks like we're all aboard, full steam ahead. I'm a little disappointed nobody said choo-choo. And at this time, I'll invite anyone wishing to testify in support of SB 299. Please, when you're ready.
Morning, Madam Chair. For the record, Danny Thompson, representing the Southern Nevada Building Trades, IBEW 396, and Operating Engineers, Local 12. In answer to the question, the monorail actually never succeeded. I was involved in the first monorail because it didn't go to the airport, and that's the reason it failed. Quite honestly, I think everybody will agree to that. In answer to the question, though, about the future, I am the vice chairman of the track committee for the RTC, along with Assemblyman Nguyen is on the committee. In the original track committee, we had plans for light rail down Maryland Parkway into the medical corridor that would go to the airport. Funding was a problem, and we weren't able to fund that. That plan is still there and viable. And there was, prior to that, there was a rail that was going to be built if we would have been able to secure the funding, that would basically follow the existing UP spur that goes through Henderson, eventually I think to 5th Street. Again, it was funding. And now, and when those failed, we then went with wheeled buses. And right now, the challenges that we face in track now is talking about mass transit. Is funding and, the gas tax, and what are we going to do about electric vehicles who aren't paying the gas tax? And it's a mess right now, but it all turns around funding. But there is a plan, and there has been plans for both light rail from Henderson and through the medical corridor. So we support this bill wholeheartedly and want to thank Senator Flores for all his work on this issue. Thank you very much.
Good morning, members of the committee. My name is Tom Morley, and I represent Laborers Local 872 and Laborers Local 169. To Assemblyman Hibbett's question, the monorail is used. According to their website, 140,000 people ride that thing within a 4-day period. Feel free to look it up. But it is being used, and hopefully if we get the A's Stadium, it'll be heavily used, and it'll be an asset to the community. And we support this bill. Thank you.
I don't see anyone else here in Carson City. Is there anyone in Las Vegas wishing to testify in support of SB 299? I don't see any in Las Vegas. BPS, is there anyone on the line wishing to testify in support of SB 299?
Chair, the line is open and working with our no callers choosing to testify in support at this time.
Thank you. Is there anyone wishing to testify in opposition to SB 299? I don't see any here in Carson City. I don't see anyone approaching in Las Vegas. BPS, is there anyone on the line wishing to testify in opposition to SB 299?
Chair, there are no callers choosing to provide opposition testimony at this time.
Thank you. Is there anyone wishing to testify neutral to SB 299? I don't see any here in Carson City, so we'll go ahead and go to Las Vegas when you're ready.
Good morning, Chair, Commissioner Brett Harris, Labor Commissioner Brett Harris, for the record, just here because we do enforcement on this. So if there are any questions.
Members, are there any questions for Commissioner Harris? No questions at this time. Thank you so much for being present with us.
Thank you.
At this time, is there anyone on the line, BPS, and wishing to testify neutral to SB 299?
Chair, there are no callers choosing to provide neutral testimony at this time.
Thank you. At this time, I'll invite the bill sponsor for closing remarks. No hypotheticals needed.
Senator Edgar Flores, for the record. Madam Chair, I just wanted to start off by saying thank you for hearing this bill. And one of my biggest honors was having you as a vice chair last session. And I would say that I'll take some credit for the training that we provided you. And you are a phenomenal human being. And I think we just did a great job. And I think we should commend the chair on the Senate Government Affairs Committee for the amazing work he did to ensure that this committee runs so well. And I also wanted to say to Assemblyman Hibbett, I don't know if this is, it's in the news. Assemblyman Hibbets rescued a human being in an airport last week, up on a flight from Carson City to Vegas. His training immediately went into place, and he saved a human being. And I just wanted to say thank you publicly. And also, Mr. Donahue, my co-presenter, will be graduating from Boyd Law School on Friday. And I want you to give him a big round of applause, because he has a lot of things going on. Nothing to do with my bill, Madam Chair. It's
the last time Senator Flores is allowed at our committee hearing. Congratulations and thank you to everybody. I have no doubt that Assemblyman Hibbets would do the same thing if he was a passenger on a train or a monorail. And thank you and congratulations, Mr. Donahue. At this time, we'll go ahead and close the hearing on SB 299. And I don't see the senator here yet. So I think what I'm going to go ahead and do is just move us into our work session. She's on her way. We'll move into work session. All right. Senator made it right in time because I was about to open my work session. All right, so at this time, I'll go ahead and invite the senator, and I will open up the hearing on SB 391, which revises provisions related to government entities. When you're ready, you may begin.
Thank you, Chair, and members of the committee. My name is Dallas Harris. I represent Senate District 11 in the southwest part of Clark County. Very happy to be with you all today to present Senate Bill 391. I'm sure you have read the bill, maybe gotten a couple emails or messages about it, and so I'll just give a quick overview of what the bill does and then turn it over to my co-presenter to talk a little bit about what the bill means for him and the folks that he represents. So last session, we had a bill that it was sponsored by your colleague, Assemblyman Watts. It was a bill that originally addressed racist mascots, came over to the Senate side, and was amended to also attempt to shut down what is known as a sundown siren in a particular town. Due to the technical language of the bill, this town was able to skirt our and this body's intent and has continued to ring that siren. And so unfortunately, we had to come back and do this again. This bill is really a no, we mean it type piece of legislation. And before I turn it over, I'm just going to address a couple of things that you may hear in some of the opposition today. There are other places in the state that have a bell or a siren. That siren may or may not have ever been tied to any particular racist intent in the past. However, it is unconstitutional for us to single out a particular town or place and tell them, oh, no, only you can't ring it anymore, right? We aren't allowed to pass laws that address one particular person or entity. And so what I have done is tried to put into place a law that will not allow certain towns that did have sundown sirens to skirt our intent and to continue to ring that siren, but also put in what I think are some legitimate exemptions, right? If there's an emergency, ring the thing, okay? I think I put in there, on a holiday, if you want to celebrate, sure, right? But we have to make sure that we are no longer a state with a sundown siren. That has to end. It should have ended in 21. It should have ended well before then. But if I have anything to say about it, it will end after this session. And unfortunately, that may be the choice before us. We may have to choose between ending a sundown siren or allowing a town to continue to alert people that it's lunchtime. If I could magically find a way to carve out legislation to allow towns to continue to ring it at noon, I would do that. But I haven't found that answer quite yet. And so I don't want to have to make one choice or the other, but we may face that choice. And I would suggest to this body that that is a very easy choice to make. I'll go ahead and turn it over to my co-presenter at this time, Madam Chair, and let him speak just a little bit about why we are back again, why it's so important that we shut down this siren and some of the effects that it's had on the population that he represents.
Thank you, Senator Harris. Good morning, Madam Chair and committee. My name is Patrick Burt. I'm the Vice Chairman of the Washoe Tribe of Nevada and California. I also serve as the Chairman of the Dresselsville Community Council. To begin, I would like to acknowledge and recognize the elders, youth, and elected officials from Indigenous nations in the room. Two of the elected officials being Lisa McDonald, the Secretary-Treasurer of the Dresselsville Community Council, and Stephen Cruz of the Woodfords Community Council. So for many Washoe experiencing the blatant racism and prejudiced social climate of Minden, Nevada, the daily siren at 6 p.m. is a deafening trigger. On April 5th, 106 years ago in 1917, Ordinance Number 6 was passed unanimously by the Board of County Commissioners in Douglas County. This ordinance mandated Indians to, and I quote, leave and be out of the town limits of the towns of Gardnerville and Minden by the hour of 6:30 p.m. of each and every day, end quote. Thus, the Minden siren was born. The legal results of violating the provisions of this ordinance included a fine of up to $25 and imprisonment of up to 10 days on top of the costs of said actions. This allowed for a multitude of inhumane actions to be enacted upon the Washoe and other Native peoples visiting the area. Established in 1906, Minden, Nevada is situated in the Carson Valley, which is home to the Powelu, or People of the Valley Band of the Washoe. Federally recognized as the Washoe Tribe of Nevada and California, the Washoe maintain that we have been of this land since time immemorial. The relationship between the Washoe and settlers has been contentious since settlers first flooded our area in search of mining prospects and rich farmlands. These competing worldviews clashed and served as a staging ground for conflict. Restricting the presence of Washoe people in particular places was seen as a policy that would help to eliminate friction between the groups, but this would only serve to empower settlers with the jurisprudence to enact violence. The restriction was policed by not only law enforcement, but many white citizens also took it upon themselves to determine and carry out penalties. Washoe elders have shared horror stories of the treatment they suffered. Many acts of violence occurred on a wide spectrum, from being verbally assaulted with racial slurs like, and I quote, go back to the res, digger spelled with a D, and you squaws better get home if you know what's best for you, to physical and sexual assault. Several Washoe men were beaten and their braids were cut off. Many Washoe women were beaten and raped. These acts of violence would go unpunished as the Washoe people did not hold confidence in law enforcement, as law enforcement officials were co-perpetrators. The outdated ordinance from 1917 mandating that Native Americans, specifically the Washoe, vacate the town by dusk is remembered as the shrieks of the siren continue to project Minden's ongoing racist atmosphere. The social consequences of this ordinance have everlasting effects on the Washoe people and other Native peoples of Nevada. Historical and intergenerational trauma are direct outcomes of these atrocious acts, and the Minden siren continues to be an embodiment of this chronic distress. On behalf of the Washoe Tribe of Nevada and California, the Native peoples of Nevada, and the broader Native Nevada population, we urge you to join us in our efforts to heal from this legacy of racism by supporting SB 391 in efforts to silence the Minden siren. Thank you.
And with that, Madam Chair, we are happy to answer any questions that the committee may have.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for the presentation, for keeping it very direct, and for sharing that bit of history with us today. Members, any questions? Assemblywoman Thomas, and then I'll go to Assemblyman Koenig.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair, and thank you, Senator, for bringing this bill forward. And, excuse me, again, history. You know, history means a lot. And when we can understand history, then we can either stop it, and I agree with you. So it's not a question that I have, it's a comment that I support this bill. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Assemblywoman Dallas Harris, for the record, to you through Chair Torres.
Go directly to members.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your support. Thank you.
Assemblyman Koenig.
Welcome to our committee. Me and you've had a few discussions on this topic, and I found you open and honest, and I think we had some good discussions. I think you gave me a challenge. I'm from Fallon, represent Churchill County. I think the residents of Fallon want their noon whistle. It's kind of crazy, but that's kind of the #1 priority at this time when all the other stuff is going on in this building. But I think you gave me a challenge that if I could talk to legal and come up with an amendment that would eliminate the sunset whistle, which I am completely and 100% against. I think it is definitely needs to be done away with. If the history of that's what it is, that's inappropriate and has no place in our society today in 2023. So I talked to Brian Fernley this morning. We have a couple of avenues that we're looking into. Once those amendments are complete, I will bring them to you, and if make sure that you're okay with that. But we're doing everything we can to try to save the Fallon noon whistle. I've talked to a Native American in this building that grew up in Fallon, asked if they ever felt any sort of anything negative from the whistle, and she said, no, it's just the noon whistle. It's at noon. She said even her grandmother, when she talked to her grandmother about it, her grandmother said, no, it's just the noon whistle. So there was no negative, connotations from Fallon's noon whistle. In fact, there's safety involved in our volunteer fire. I think they're here. They're probably going to be telling you a little bit more. But just want to say that I am in support of eliminating any whistle that has anything to do with the things that they're talking about. At the same time, to eliminate another whistle that has no history of that. And I went to the museum, and I gave you all our research. They did all the newspaper articles back from, it's kind of ironic that ours started in 1916, and I think the one you're talking about in Minden was 1916 too, or within the year or two. But we have that whole history, and I hope that those articles made you comfortable that the Fallon noon whistle isn't racist and never had anything to do with that. And if you have more questions, we can do more questions about that. But I guess my question after all of this rambling is if we can come up with an amendment that would meet both of our needs. Are you okay with something like that?
Thank you for the question, Assemblyman Dallas Harris, for the record. Absolutely. I am open to any idea that you've got. I've also been in discussions with legal counsel, Mr. Fernley, and I'm aware that you all have been having discussions, and I've given him a similar task to see if we can come up with something, and I'm open to it. I will say today, I do not see an avenue for there to continue to be a daily whistle, given that that would allow Minden to also continue to have a daily whistle. If there's some way to not do that, I'm open. Other things that I have thrown out there, and I would be more than happy to consider as well, is right now in the bill, in the first reprint, you see that I allow testing once every 6 months. I am more than willing to come up with what might be a more reasonable time period for the city of Fallon. I will note that, at one point, the city of Fallon rang it 7 days a week. And then they decided to give it a break on Sundays for church, right? And so I don't see why we can't go to once a week. Or once a month, or some different interval in order to ensure that we are able to permanently put that Minden siren into the history books. But I'm more than happy to continue to have conversations over the next, 25 days or so.
Thank you for your willingness to work with us.
Thank you. Assemblyman Taylor.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Senator, for bringing this really important bill, and thank you for sharing your story and your history. Mine is really much more of a comment. I'm certainly sensitive to the sundown siren. There's a history of that that goes back to slave days when it comes down to the African American community. So I understand that and the symbolism of it, and I do think it's important for us as a state to make a stand and to say that's not okay, that's not who we are anymore. And I appreciate your being open. I've had a chance to speak with my colleague as well, Assemblyman Koenig, about their needs in Fallon, and if there's any way to be able to keep that, because it has no history of that. It's really something for Fallon, right? And there's no reason to doubt that or anything like that. And I appreciate your being open to, if there is a way to continue that tradition from that standpoint, but kill the racist history, then you're being open to that. But I think the most important thing in this is to kill the racist history.
Thank you for that, Assemblywoman Taylor. Dallas Harris, for the record. There's one thing that I do want to pick up on what you said, and that is the tradition part, right? Let's be very clear. I think you're probably going to hear today that they absolutely must test that whistle every day, or they won't know it's going to work on any given day. I've not been convinced that it has to be a daily testing for safety purposes. I am convinced that it does need to be tested. But whether it has to be daily or not, that is much more of a tradition aspect than a safety one. So I want this committee to be clear that is in my opinion anyway, the main driver is that they want to keep that tradition, which I understand and do not devalue. But there is a way to do this and allow cities like Fallon, who rely on it for emergency services, to keep their population and their volunteer firefighters safe.
Assemblyman DeLong.
Thank you, Chair. Just kind of a related question. Appreciate the presentation. Do you know when that ordinance you discussed from 1916 or was it 1913? When did the city of Minden rescind it?
Thank you for the question, Assemblyman DeLong. Dallas Harris, for the record. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it was 1970.
Just surprised that they kept the whistle going but rescinded the ordinance?
Yes, thank you for that, Assemblyman DeLong. Dallas Harris, for the record. And as a matter of fact, there was a short period in 2008 where the city council on its own agreed to stop bringing it. But then they changed their mind. So here we are.
Assemblyman De Silva.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Senator Harris, for your presentation today and your very eloquent co-presenter. Thank you. My question is this, again, this is more of a freshman question. How was some of these local municipalities able to skirt the law from 2021? Just to get an understanding as to how that even took place. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that, Assemblyman De Silva. Dallas Harris, for the record. So if I remember correctly, the precise language of the bill said that the bell could not be rung at the time historically associated, and so they just moved it up an hour.
Assemblyman Nguyen, and I will remind committee members, we have floor to get to today, and I have a work session. So last question, quickly, please.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to make sure that
the provision that you put there, Senator, the holiday. If these sounds are associated with bad things that happen in history, why were we using holiday? Because holiday is a time of celebration and positiveness, right? So putting the holiday exemption would be a question to me because, as a member of minority communities that always been targeted for different hate crimes and events in the past, having something negative associated with a holiday would be kind of counterintuitive.
Thank you for that question, Assemblyman Nguyen, Dallas Harris for the record. So I put that in because this piece of legislation is really not designed to be punitive. And there are many communities in small towns that use these sirens for all kinds of things, including fire emergency response. And I wanted to allow them to continue to, have a town celebration, let's say, for a particular holiday, and use the siren in that way, if that is something that they so chose to do. The goal here for me, and again, the reason why I put this in is to come up with the reasonable reasons why they might want to ring this thing. And as long as they're not doing it every day, I didn't see any reason why I couldn't let them ring it for Memorial Day or what other celebrations they may want to do. And I can acknowledge that while for our native population in the town of Minden and Gardnerville, it does have that connotation to it. But for the residents in other areas and the non-native populations, they have also gotten accustomed and tied to it, and it can carry many different meanings. And so that is my best attempt at being reasonable, I think, is the best answer to your question.
Thank you. At this time, I don't believe there's any other questions, and if there are, you could ask them offline. At this time, I'll invite anyone wishing to testify in support of SB 391. I'll remind members of the public that everyone will be given up to 2 minutes. There is a timer on the table as well to kind of let you know how much time that you have used. But I'll invite anyone wishing to testify in support. Please begin when you're ready.
Hung Maheshi, Manahubu, buenos dias, and good morning. I would like to share some what I call racism in the outdoors.
I apologize to interrupt, but if you could please make sure you state and spell your name for the record. Thank you.
Yes. I'm a little nervous, so I do things like that. Marty Meeden, Meeden, Washoe descendant, resident of Gardnerville. We've heard, as Washoe folks, that this is a tradition in Carson Valley. I would like to show you some other traditions that we used to have here in Nevada and in the United States. We serve whites only, no Spanish or Mexicans. A sign. Help wanted, no Irish need apply. I won't use the word, but I will share what it says. Japanese, keep moving. This is a white neighborhood. No ends, Jews, no dogs. And this one, whites only within city limits after dark. These were tradition here in many places in the West and the South. In the United States, we would never allow any of these things to persist today. These are visuals. That siren is an auditory trigger. Why is it any different? Please support this bill. Thank you.
When you're ready, please begin.
I was waiting for the timer, but I guess it's on. Hung Edgy. My name is Charles Smokey. I'm the chairman of the Washoe Tribe of Nevada and California. First, I'd like to say, I appreciate allowing me to be here, but I didn't write a speech out. I'm here to just to speak because we've been working on this for years. I don't need to read a speech to tell you my feelings now. First, I want to say this was not an easy place to get here. I said this the last time we had a hearing. 4.5, 5 years ago, when we started meetings, bringing up this siren, I sat there by myself because people were scared. This is a piece of living trauma. It's the sound of a siren. It doesn't matter what time it is. This happened to our people. This was racism directly to our Washoe people. And if I know it may be hard to understand, but as Washoe people, we know exactly what it means. It doesn't matter what time it is. That's what it's there for. If I had my way, I'd tear that siren down, put it smack in the middle of the city, and put racism on it. Put the ordinance on there. Let everybody know what the truth of the history is, truly is. We're not doing this to try to just remove it just because. It's because it affects our people. No time is acceptable. I know the bill says otherwise. Again, we're trying to be nice. This is a legislative process. We want to encompass all. The reason I'm here is because I serve my people. I fight for my people as a highest elected official in a sovereign nation. For myself, I've served my country in the Army. I've served the state in the Nevada National Guard. And now I serve my people, and I fight for every single one of them. I take the duties charged to me to heart, and that's why I'm here. As I say, SB 391 needs to be passed. This needs to be passed because this won't be over even if this bill is passed. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Next.
Good morning, Madam Chairwoman Torres and Honorable Assembly. Thank you for the opportunity for allowing me to testify in today's bill hearing. My name is Lisa McDonald. I'm currently the Secretary Treasurer of the Jesselville Community Council, which is in Douglas County, a lifelong resident. I grew up hearing the 6 o'clock siren, and growing up, I knew just that it was 6 o'clock. It wasn't until later when I grew up understanding the realization of what that really was about. I am saddened and very hurt knowing what my ancestors have gone through in the past. They were brutally attacked, assaulted, and raped, and it is hurtful. Like Chairman Smokey stated, that it is trauma, it's generational trauma, and we need to end it. So I have faith in the committee today that you guys will do the right thing and eliminate that siren. Thank you.
Thank you for being present with us today.
Good morning, Chair and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Annette Magnus, and I'm the Executive Director of Battleborn Progress. We're here in support of SB 391, which strengthens a law passed in the previous session that should have ended the use of sundown sirens across the state. As someone who was born and raised in this state, it is frankly embarrassing that we even need a bill like this. It's disgusting that certain towns in Nevada are still employing this relic of our country's institutional racism. These sirens were explicitly meant to warn Black, Indigenous, and other people of color in the area to stay indoors and stay out of public sight, lest they be attacked by local residents. While some try to whitewash this topic and explain away the meaning of this siren, it remains a reminder of these atrocities in our country's history. Specifically, it's a reminder to non-white people in these towns that you are not safe. I will just add, it is 2023. We have clocks, we have phones, we have technology. We do not need a siren for any reason, even to designate a time or for some backwards tradition. Sirens were and are still based in racism, period. This bill will give the Attorney General power to bring civil action against these towns with such sirens. SB 391 aims to put a stop to it once and for all. We thank the sponsor, my senator, and urge the passage of this important bill. Thank you.
Stephen Cruz. I said, good morning, my relatives. My name is Stephen Cruz. I am Southern Band Washoe from Woodfords, California, and I am in support of this bill here, and My mom told me stories of not being able to eat in the same establishments as everybody else. And one thing I want to say also is that one of the accepted traditional teachings that most of natives around the country accept is these 4 sacred colors: red, black, white, and yellow. It's the 4 basic colors of all humans. And I say humans, not men, because we are all humans. There's men and women, and the sooner we can all get together, the sooner everything will be better for everybody and our children, the generations coming up. Say thank you for allowing us to be over here today, and that each and every one of you may receive blessings for your children, your family, your loved ones. That's who we are. Keep praying, keep believing in each other, in our creation. We have to take care of our Mother Earth. Thank you.
Thank you. I feel better just having listened to your testimony. Thank you. Next person.
Hello, Will Adler, representing the Pyramid Lake Paiute Tribe, Duck Valley Reservation, and Duckwater Reservation. I first want to thank the bill sponsor for bringing forward SB 391. But to be clear, SB 391 is a piece of legislation that shouldn't need to exist. The last legislative session, the 81st legislative session, did pass a pretty explicit piece of legislation that intended to ban the use of these sirens for explicitly these purposes and for the disruption of communities. But as we see, sometimes certain communities need a little bit more clarification or some help following through and doing what was intended. So I just want to say this bill has every good intention of doing the follow through and making the right commitments that the legislature wanted to make last time. And hopefully it'll have the teeth that'll really get it done this time, because this is a needed measure and it is a long-term trauma that is caused by the continuation of these practices. So I want to thank, again, the bill sponsor for bringing this forward, and thank you all for hearing it, and please pass SB 391. Thank you.
Watley, my name is Danielle Christensen. I'm a Washoe descendant. I'm asking for support from everybody here to support SB 391. As you've all heard about the stories of the sundown siren, I myself have heard stories from my family. My great-grandmother, she would cry when, she would get beaten and thrown out of town, and elder members of my family who are no longer here, they were thrown in jail if they weren't leave, or they were beaten like other people have said. I just wanted to say I really would request support for this bill. Amongoli, thank you.
Good morning, Chair and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Christine Saunders, and I'm the Policy Director with the Progressive Leadership Alliance of Nevada, here in support of Senate Bill 391. You've heard today from directly impacted community members the traumatic impacts that these sirens have continued to have on their lives. It is imperative that this legislature listen to their voices and take action to finally end this racism in our state. We urge your support. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Mountain Eagle. I'm a Washoe traditional practitioner, oral historian for my people. The siren issue, in my eyes, and our elders' eyes, is that when people came to our country, and in 1859, they had a war on us and wiped us out. The cavalry wiped us out. And so what they were doing was trying to get rid of the native population so that they can create the state of Nevada in 1860. And so when they did that, our elders had to stay in the mountains for 3 seasons. Our women, children, there was no men left. They wiped out all of our men, so we wouldn't have nobody to protect us anymore. So in the early 1870s is when the people, the Washishu people, came back out of hiding and started working for the ranches and working for the settlers that were living on the properties in our territory, because we were friends with them in the beginning before the war was on us. But the war was on us from the American system, which is to get rid of the Indian and save the man. And so now, as we got to go back and live with the ranches and work for them and slave for them with on their properties now, they were constantly taking land that didn't belong to them. It belonged to us traditionally. But as America moved into this country, they continued to use tactics to getting rid of the original people. And after they did that, then they started making changes so that it looks like they're actually on our side. But the rules that they had made still stand, which was a crime against the people and crime against nature. And so like the bill that was passed in 1917, you always got to realize that when Wovoka, a Paiute prophet, came out and he said that all we have to do is hold hands and dance and become one people again, paint our faces red, then we would get rid of the racism position that America was now creating. And what did America do? They made a law saying that we couldn't practice our traditions, our cultural practices. And that was identified with just us. It wasn't blacks, it wasn't Chinese, and it wasn't other nations. And so for me, as we're watching these things happen, the siren, I have no problem with the siren because we need something for emergency. We need something for these things to notice what time it is. If the people don't have no clock and they're out in the mountains, they hear that siren, they know what time it is. You know, in emergency situations, we need it. But the foundation of the history is what I'm referring to here. I have an 80-year-old Washoe that wanted me to bring this down to read document for him, but I'm not going to read it because I don't have enough time. But when the natives used to go to town, they used to have to eat behind behind the restaurants. They couldn't go in front. And in the 1970s, we began to start to use the front because they stood up for themselves, the younger population. And so now, here we are today talking about old history. And the younger generations in my tribal organization is doing the same thing. They're not listening to the elders, and they're not living with a traditional heart, that they're sitting up here telling you guys their history when they don't even know their history. They're going on what was written. They're going on what they tell each other when they take the information from us, from the oral historians, and the traditional elders, which there are hardly anybody left that can even tell them what had happened back then. So the bottom line is, it'd be good you guys pass this ordinance to just designate it so that it's used for emergencies and used for what it needs to be used for. But the history of why it was there still needs to be understood, that the native people still feel like we don't belong here because of the history made. As Nevada claims this land as a salvage title, we native people aren't gone. I'm a Holocaust survivor. I have a Declaration of Sacred Estates document we created and filed here with an identity theft and fraud that's sitting in the legislative library back here. And these young men, our corporate leaders, haven't even read that document because I noticed they don't say and focus on some of the positives that we've created in order for history to be in the past and for us to make the move towards the future for a better understanding, so we all can, again, live together with all the differences we have so that we can actually move forward now.
And I apologize, sir. I do need to wrap up so I can get to other individuals testifying in support. But if you have any written documentation, I think you did mention a document, please make sure you get it to our committee staff, and we'll make sure that it's posted as an exhibit for our committee members.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Teresa Melendez, and I'm an Indigenous organizer here in the state of Nevada. It's a pleasure to spend time with you again this morning and to speak in support of a really important bill to the tribal nations here in Nevada. I'm really grateful that we have several elected tribal council leaders here in the room with us today, including the chairman of the main council for the Washoe tribe, the vice chairman, and then council members from community councils with the Washoe tribe. understanding that these folks are sovereign nations, also leaders of sovereign nations who've also been elected just like you to create legislation and to provide services and support and governance for their people. Really grateful that they have made the time to come here and are working with you all to pass legislation that helps us co-govern this state better, to make sure that all people of this state are taken care of and served with dignity and respect. And that when there are instances, laws like a sundown siren, where that is not afforded to all people, that we work together to make sure that all people are treated with respect in the state. Also recognizing that this is indigenous stolen land and that the voice of tribal leaders, elected tribal council members, are incredibly important, especially the chairs of those councils. So as Vice Chair Burt reminded us that, you know, he's a professor of American Indian Studies. He's also the vice chair of a sovereign nation. And he eloquently reminded us of the history of the sundown siren, what it has meant to the people. So when community comes forth and tells us what their history is, it's upon us to believe them. As a professor, as an elected leader, we know that this history is fact for the Washoe tribe. So really grateful for their leadership and for your leadership, and thank you for all the hard work that you do. Appreciate your support in this bill. Miigwech.
Thank you, and I will ask, I know that we do have some additional remarks. If you want to just get your name on the record, say, you know, we support. But we have to get to, we have caucus meeting at 11 that we have to get members to. So I want to allow for opposition, and then we will be rolling the work session. If there's anybody here for the work session, we're rolling it until tomorrow. Thank you. Quickly, please.
Thank you, chairs and members of the committee. My name is Cody Hoskins, political director for SEIU 1107. With that being said, I'll keep it quick. You've heard from the community members here, and we believe that this bill should be supported, and we need to remove the siren. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Jennifer Lanahan for the record. I'm here on behalf of the Las Vegas Paiute Tribe and the Reno Sparks Indian Colony, and we just want to ditto the remarks that have been said so far. Thank you.
Ma'am, do you have your mic on? Thank you.
Keep it on? Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, I know you don't have a lot of time. Hi, my name is Debbie Silva. I'm a resident of Minden, the particular town we've been talking about. And I hear the siren. I live very close to the siren, and I hear it. As a white resident, when I hear it, I visualize every evening images of white boys in the back of pickup trucks with baseball bats riding around town, hunting the Washoe people. And I do. Every evening I have these visions from the stories that I've heard of what has gone on in our town. This siren is not an emergency siren. It is not to, give ranchers an opportunity to go home for dinner. It is, unfortunately, the heritage of Douglas County, but it's a heritage not to be proud of because it's a heritage of violence. I was so excited when the first bill passed, and I thought, okay, we're finally going to shut this down. Our town government has worked around the law, and it will continue to try and do that. It doesn't respect or honor the laws that are made by the state. And it doesn't respect the people of Minden. So I, as an ally, am here, but also I want to tell you that there are many people like me who are white that live in Minden who are opposed to having this siren continue. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, I don't see any additional support here or in Carson City. BPS, is there any callers on the line?
Callers, if you would like to testify in support of SB 391, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. One moment, Chair.
Hi, my name is Ray Burton. I'm the co-executive director of the Nevada chapter of the National Organization for Women. And we too want to thank Senator Harris and Assemblywoman Watts for bringing this bill again. I'm a native Nevadan and very embarrassed and horrified this is happening in our state. I'll keep it short. Basically, we want to see this siren stopped. We know the history of racism behind it. The Indigenous community members have to hear this every day. It doesn't seem like there's any time of day that this would be okay. I know they're working on the amendment, but we need to pass this bill again and make it crystal clear. We do not tolerate sundown sirens in our state. Thank you.
Thank you, BPS. Next caller. And just as we're going to transitioning to the next caller, just remind callers, please keep our remarks short. I do have to, we are going to have to recess and come back after floor. I apologize to committee members. And then we will hear opposition. Next caller, please begin.
Stephanie Mushrush Digamdiatlai. How are you all? My name is Stephanie Mushrush. I'm an enrolled Washoe tribal citizen of the Washoe Tribe of Nevada in California. I work as a licensed clinical social worker and mental health therapist in the Native community. I'm also on the Washoe Tribal Health Board. I'm here to express my support of SB 391 to stop the sundown siren, which serves as a tool of colonization attached to historical and current day intergenerational trauma for the Washoe, other Native people, and even allies, as previously expressed, who understand its history to now. Manifestations of that trauma include mental health and physical health disparities far beyond any other population. When we acknowledge the experience of our Washoe people, we understand why we feel this so deeply. It's been just over 106 years since the enactment of Minden Sundown Ordinance and almost 115 years since Gardnerville's. We have far to go. Please, let's move SB 391 forward to right the wrongs, honor the Washoe, and stop the siren. Thank you.
Kara, there are no more callers choosing to provide support testimony at this time.
Thank you. At this time, the Assembly Committee on Government Affairs is going to go ahead and go into recess.